everybody. Welcome to the XP Billionaires podcast. We were away for a week, but we are back. We are more energetic, more bright eyed, more bushy tailed, and I don't know. Hopefully, we did a whole lot of gaming while we were gone. So let's dive right into a lot of that. This is Ray Fagram. I am joined by Sky Knight and the Mel Zerker, the XP Billionaires of Legend, and we are going to talk to those legends right here, right now.
Ooh, of Legend. I like that.
I feel like we've earned it at this point.
I love it. I want to put that like as a subset of my name from now on.
I'm sure it's wonderful resume material.
I hope so, and I hope someday you guys can put that on there and get the absolute dream job you've been looking for. So
I did interview someone once who put on their resume that they were an awkward dancer. So I'm not going to say it doesn't work.
Awesome.
She did get the job, and later I did find out she was an awkward dancer.
But you know what? At least you know she didn't lie on the resume. That's one of those situations where she could have easily proven that without realizing it.
Exactly.
All right, let's say hello to everybody. Sky, how are you doing today? What is new and exciting?
New and exciting? Not much. Honestly, I haven't done a ton of gaming lately. Just really going along with what you're doing, which I assume you want to talk about.
Well, yeah, I mean, while we were gone, I started the final cut of Disco Elysium, so I'm very happy about that. And we haven't gotten very far yet, I would assume. It's very, very early stages at this point.
Yeah, we're still on the first day actually, but
okay.
Near the end of the first day. We've actually, I think, unlocked quite a bit. As much as you can at that point in the game. Like half the world is barred off at the beginning of the game. But yeah, I think you're doing all right. We just need to get certain skills up.
Yeah, I set my base specialty skill as visual calculus. I thought for a murder investigation that would actually be pretty useful.
And it has come in useful thus far.
Yeah. So I'm quite pleased. We'll see how my version of this random drunkard goes. Definitely has the superstar syndrome. Anytime he talks about being a superstar, I choose it because I have to, and I think it's now one of my formed thoughts or whatever you call them.
Yes, in the thought cabinet.
Yes, that. So yeah, that's definitely exciting. But beyond that, I took the week off to just game listlessly. I think Disco Elysium was the only plan I had, but I would just sit down, pick up a controller, and just play something randomly. So the games included Stardew Valley, The Surge 2, Gundam Breaker 3, which has been really good. I'm even playing Dragon Quest 2 on my Switch so very, very nice retouch from an old school game. So I've got so much there. I do have to get back to proper sequential gaming, go back to finishing Tales of Berseria, things like that. So I think now that the vacation's over, we can start getting a little bit more focused on what I'm doing. So.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I have to get back to Strikers at some point. I've just been kind of preoccupied.
The way I see it, you're just letting Mel catch up to you. So there you go. Speaking of Mel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. We're in a stay-at-home order here in our city again, so I've been frantically cleaning and rearranging things in a desperate effort to make it feel like I have a different place to be in.
You know what? That's a good way to put it. I never thought of it that way.
Just desperately being like, if I move this planter here, will it feel like I'm in a different place?
Yeah.
But I have a vacation coming up. I have a full week off, and I am very excited to be gaming so much. I am saving up. I know Valheim is going to be one of my big games that week. So I'll have to let you guys know how that turns out. But I've heard very good things about it, and it sounds super chill.
Awesome. Yeah. I was on a full week vacation, and unfortunately, there were some circumstances that had me go back 2 days early. Um, I'm happy to do it. I mean, I was like I still have to go into work when I go to work, so and since I work in retail and the mall is completely dead because of the stay at home order, didn't really feel like much had changed. It was just in a different place. So it gave me time to relax. I can get in a little bit of gaming either on my phone or on my Switch, which is nice. So that helps. But yeah,
I
oh
Oh, no, I was just going to say there is something I have been playing on my phone, and so have you.
yes. Well, why don't since you didn't have too much, why don't you tell us what you're playing or what we
Um,
are playing?
what we are playing. Yes, the Disgaea game for mobile phones is finally out,
Yes.
and it's so much fun.
Yeah.
It's very different. Like it's not a strat. It's more of a turn-based thing, but it's a lot of fun, and I've had some decent luck on my pulls for characters so far, so I'm quite pleased about that. Um,
I did get a lucky pull earlier today, actually. I didn't tell you. Um Yeah, I had a double whammy pull, and in it it included Usalia and dupe of Roslyn. So
nice.
yeah. So very happy about that, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's definitely still in its very early stages, so not as many characters as I'd like, but we'll get there.
Yeah, I'm really quite happy though. I actually have already most of the characters that I really love, so
Excellent.
I, yeah, it's great.
Alrighty. Well, that being said, I think it's time we get into this week's discussion.
Let's do it.
Sweet. All right. So we are into episode 3 of our series on RPG controls. So after the week off, we're raring to go. We're ready to keep this topic going as hard as we can. And for this week, I wanted to get a little bit more specific into some of the things we were talking about back in episode 1. We were talking about our own personal control preferences back then. If you haven't had a listen, I definitely recommend going back and checking it out. And again, you don't have to do that right away. There's no sequential order, and just some good reference points for you. But to go into more detail for this, what I wanted to do was kind of highlight some games that both succeeded and failed when it came to controls. And there's only one way for us to do that.
It's time for another good idea, bad idea.
So yeah, this week, we're just going to talk about games that have some really, really great control schemes and those that were either counterintuitive, just didn't work very well, or were just god awful. So, I mean, at this point, let's just see what we've got in those cases. Now, I get to start off this week, and before I get into my good idea and bad idea, I'm going to do mine just a little bit differently, just because they kind of go hand in hand with one another. So I'm going to tell you what both of them are first, and then kind of explain my reasoning for them. So the first one is my good idea for this is Code Vein, and my bad idea is the Surge 2, even the Dark Souls games, almost all the other ones, the other Souls like titles that are out there. I have not played them all, so I can't say for certainty about this, but between the Surge and Code Vein, I've got enough of a frame of reference to kind of get the idea. And so Code Vein really just felt like an action RPG, and I loved that. It felt perfect in terms of its actual button combinations and executions. Your basic attack was square, heavy attack was triangle, circle was dodge. Obviously, these are the PS4 controls, so whatever they translate to in other games. You had the directional pad would to have you cycle and go through your items, and there's a couple of 2-button combinations that were fairly easy, fairly simple to use in order to do specialty moves, things like that. And this was great. Like this had the feels of an action RPG. Now, games like The Surge 2, while also action RPGs, I don't understand the controls sometimes. It's your light and your heavy attacks are R1 and R2 on the PS4 controller. And for an action RPG that is heavily focused on close range combat, melee combat, things like that, it just seems so strange to have those buttons as your basic attacks. If this were a game like Mass Effect, Fallout, Borderlands, you're looking at, you've got a gun. Gun has trigger. Trigger button shoots gun. Makes sense. I think there's a certain logic to that. But like pull the trigger to swing your sword. Like it's not Final Fantasy VIII. This isn't a gunblade. This is just you swinging your big weapon around and killing things. I still make the mistake of hitting square when I'm trying to sneak up on someone in the Surge 2 to get a surprise kill on them. And it doesn't work. Like I don't understand the reasoning for it when you've got a traditional action RPG control layout available in most games.
Yeah, if I was presented with controls like that, I would drop the game instantly.
Yeah, like I don't mind. Like you do get used to them, and that's the thing. But it's just I always question why they would implement it in such a way. Like maybe it's for an extra challenge. It's to add to a little bit of difficulty in the game. But
Yeah,
I feel like it's a
that's
manufactured difficulty rather than an actual gameplay difficulty.
that's it. That's exactly it. It's not. It's difficulty via frustration rather than difficulty via something intelligent
Challenge.
and just good design.
Yeah, yeah. So it yeah, so that's essentially it. Like I've like the last couple of action RPGs I've played that were on a controller. I played Trials of Mana, eh, and even Tales of Berseria. The combat is action oriented. Like I never have a problem going back to those after a long while, but I haven't played a Dark Souls game or even the Surge 1 in over a year. So I booted up the Surge 2 and getting used to that new system is just so difficult for me. It's almost as bad as playing an import because, like I was talking about before, where in Japan, circle was your confirm button, which I'm also dealing with to an extent playing Gundam Breaker. So, but yeah, so those are so that's my reasoning behind it. I like a streamlined action combat control system. And if you want to do something different, there's nothing to stop you from it. But really, don't add that difficulty if you can avoid it. It's just a somewhat of a frustrating insight. Your game has to be incredibly good for people to want to keep playing it with that system. So let's move on. Let's hear Sky's choices for good idea and bad idea for game controls.
Okay, so what I'm gonna go with for my good idea is Persona 5 Strikers, and what I really like about it is that they have an incredibly simple control system that is clearly telegraphed, and you can do some absolutely fun, wild moves in that system with the simplest button combinations. Yes, please, this is how controls should work. And because they've marked the controls so prominently, you can easily pick it up again if you haven't played in a while. This is what I'm talking about when it comes to, actual good design. Like, I'm sorry, but making the controls more difficult is simply making is just an exercise in manufacturing frustration. So no, this is how you do it. Now, my bad idea, and this is where I'm going to differ a little from Rave, is Mass Effect 1. I cannot speak to the rest of them because that was the only one I actually sat down and tried to play. But what? The controls are god-awful. One, wheel menus should not exist. I hate them. Because when you have menus that operate with the analog stick, like most wheel menus, it's so goddamn easy to pick the wrong thing. If you're playing a turn-based game, that's not as big of an issue. But in an action game or something, shooter-esque like Mass Effect, like that can be lethal. And I had the same problem with Genshin Impact on the PS4 and its wheel menu thing. Hated it. And now, it will never be natural to me to trigger my weapon with the triggers. The issue is that in most games I play, and I think most games a lot of people play, is that you actually don't use the triggers all that often. So when they suddenly become one of your main buttons, it's completely unnatural. And plus, they're a lot easier to accidentally hit than other buttons on the controller, depending on how you place your hands and your hand shape and whatnot. So, no thank you. It's not the reason I quit playing the game. The reason I quit playing the game was the fucking Mako. But, yeah. No, I just think they're bad controls. Sorry.
No, I understand that. I used, like, earlier, like when I mentioned Mass Effect, I used it just for the sense of the trigger button for the guns, and I I've gotten used to it. I've played a couple of shooter games now, so it's just become the norm for holding a gun in a video game. So like I don't mind that, but I also know you don't play a lot of shooters, so I completely understand where you're coming from there. And yeah, wheel menus can definitely be a huge problem. I had wheel menus in Star Trek Online on the PS4, and yeah, it can definitely be a bit of a pain using them. So I understand. Um,
Yeah, and it's not, and the reason why I included that here is because it's not anything inherent about, the shape of the menu or anything, but it is the fact that the analog sticks are simply not that accurate. They
yeah,
just they just aren't, particularly on PlayStation controllers. So, yeah, no, I don't want to have to rely on that in life or death scenarios.
no, fair enough. Here's hoping that, when we finally get our PS5, maybe the DualSense controller has that a little better.
That would be nice.
It would be nice, but honestly, like previous 4 generations and they can't figure out a decent analog stick.
I will say though, I know the Mako's garbage, but I will die for that thing. It is a nightmare, and later games they make fun of Shepard for not being able to drive, and I love it.
Oh yeah, like
I'm flying at bad guys doing cartwheels in my truck. It's so stupid.
yeah, it's they made fun of themselves after the fact for totally screwing up the Mako. But it's one of these situations where remapping controls would have really helped. And maybe you can do that in the PC version, I don't know, but
Well, they've also said that they've done a lot of work on the Mako for the Legendary Edition too. So maybe they'll have improved that as well.
yeah, and that I'd be very interested to see because honestly, like even though I was having troubles with the game, um, I did like it. I was enjoying it until I had to do elaborate shit with the Mako, and I was just like, no.
Yeah, it can get a little tricky, but yeah, no, I'm definitely excited for the Legendary Edition to find out the new stuff too. So we've got it on pre-order, so God forbid once our lockdown ends, we'll be able to hopefully pick it up.
Yeah.
All right, Mel, you are up. So what are some great and terrible controls you've encountered in your gaming experience?
Sure. I am on the opposite side that I like radio menus. I think they're really handy. But that's just me. I'm gonna talk about Dishonored because I like the Dishonored games a lot, and I think the first one is just genuinely fun to play. They play a lot like Bioshock 2, if you've kind of played that instead. And I really like. I think the thing that's great about this is that there's kind of two ways to play the Dishonored games: lethal or non-lethal. And what they've done is they've streamlined the controls so that the same controls work for different things you're doing, but in a really, really good way. So if I'm walking up to an enemy and I'm doing the combative version, holding R2 or clicking R2 will block, right, and attack. But if I'm sneaking up behind someone, if I'm stealthing, then that becomes the like choke someone unconscious button. So because this game is so much like you pick an approach and you stick with it, it actually works really well because then you don't have these buttons that are not being used. You have like a really clear layout of exactly what you're expected to do. But I think it does it really, really well. I love when games do this. I will say this is one thing about Persona Strikers that I'm not a big fan of, is I think it doesn't do a great job of this because sometimes I'll walk up behind, like I'll be playing as, oh my god, motorcycle chick. Her name is Makoto. I'll be playing as Makoto as my main, and I'll walk up behind an enemy to do a sneak attack and rip off their mask, and instead I'll give myself nuclear affinity. And I'm like, why? Why did you do this to me? So it can be done well, it can be done badly, but I think Dishonored does it well. And I also, this is just like a thing about me in general, is I really like when games give you the option to sheath and unsheath your weapon at will. Because when you're standing there having a normal conversation and you're like pointing a sword at someone's throat, it's sort of hard to take seriously. And I just like the idea that you walk in somewhere and you're like, oh, tuck my blade away. Hello, everyone. I'm a normal person.
I don't know. I mean, if you want to get command of a room, that's how I would walk in.
I mean, true, but sometimes I'm just looking for my daughter.
Fair enough.
I mean, to be fair, in that game, your daughter is like extremely like, you should go kill people. Let's go like be a badass assassin. So I mean, she gets it. But yeah. So anyways, that's my good idea. My bad idea is going to be a game, again, one of the few games I have not finished, called Two Worlds. There was a sequel somehow, which I was just like, no. It reminded me of Fable, but very, very badly done. And I think the first sign that I had that something was off about this game is that of the kind of the four buttons, the XO, square, all those, two of those buttons are jump buttons. One is a normal jump and one is a jump back button. And I just why? This is not a running game, it's a combat game. And the idea that you spend two of your buttons on jumps, like most people in games will just have the joystick, you push a joystick in a direction and push jump, you jump in that direction if it's meaningful. But yeah, it's just like you attack with your right trigger and you heal with the right bumper, and then there's like a mana control in the other bumper. It's just such a weird control scheme, and like you can't even tell what the focus of the game is. Like if there's two buttons for jump, it should really be a game about jumping.
Man, who the hell designed that? Like,
That's a great question. I should look that up again because it's been, like I said, been a long time since I played it. And I remember seeing it at EB Games, and I was like, yeah, this looks like the kind of game I'm into. And on the surface, yep, it was. And then I think I got through a couple hours of it. It is a 2007 high fantasy role-playing game developed by Reality Pump.
Wait, reality punk or pump?
Pump.
Not they I think they failed in their mission statement. I don't think they pumped much reality into this game.
Yeah, a little bit. Apparently, they filed for bankruptcy a couple of years ago. Just see if there's anything in here that they're kind of known for that stands out to me here. They did get a sequel, shockingly. I can't believe that they got a sequel, but they did. But none of the other ones are really like nothing I really know all that well. There's certainly games I've seen in stores, but nothing that I've played or that I know anyone who's played.
Yeah,
But they were rolling out a lot of content. Like they had like 3 games out in 2002. Like
yeah, I remember hearing about these games now that you mention it, and just that they were badly panned when they came out.
yeah, there's another one that they had called Eye of the Dragon, but it's the like eye, like the letter Eye of the Dragon.
That's so dumb.
I mean,
and I think this just captures a little bit of this game. And if you look up the you can download the old book, like the little booklet of the mythos of the world, and if you just look at it, it really speaks to its time.
wow.
So there's my my thought. If here's the thing is like my theory is that if your game, I should be able to look at your control scheme and get a general sense of what the point of your game is. Is it stealth? Is it, are there light and strong attacks? Can I jump? Right? Like those things should tell me a bit about how to play your game. So when they don't match up, it's just like a really weird. It's really weird to play.
Sometimes simplicity is just best, and you want to have something dynamic, you want to have something different, you want to have something awesome, but you don't have to make the controls so complicated that it deteriorates from all the great work you may have done with your actual game.
Like it comes off that they were putting it all together and they were like, oh crap, what do we do with this button? We have too many open buttons. What do we put there? Because like in a lot of games you can register the D-pad, but you can also register the left trigger to be anything you want, which is strange.
Yeah, but you know what?
I would never played a game where you could do that.
But I would rather have the option to do that than have something so completely overcomplicated. Like you just because all the buttons are there does not mean you have to use them. There are games out there where I have barely touched the trigger buttons or the bumpers, or controllers have gotten so complex that they've added the L3 and R3 things, which at first was one of the weirdest concepts I had ever come across. But it's not necessary to use just because you have it.
Well, yeah, they get obsessed with new tech and whatnot, and therefore they feel like they have to use it. Like you saw the same thing happened when they first introduced motion controls on the Wii, right? Like, a lot of games just used it because it was there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the same can be said with the touchpad on the PS4. Like I have so rarely used that as an actual touchpad. Like I've just been like it's now just being used as a button, like as a left and a right button. Like,
or for the select. Like I don't know how many games now it's just the menu.
I get a lot of games where it's the map button. But yeah, you're right. Like it's just been reassigned and given another purpose. And yeah, such great ideas. And it's still there. It's still there on the PS5. So I don't know what they're planning to do with this additional piece of the button, but seriously, keep it simple, guys. Like it's that simple. Like
the main issue is, I think, is that they don't seem to understand that the best controls are the ones that stay out of your way. The ones you don't have to think about. The ones that let you just become absorbed into your experience, right? You don't want to be fighting the controller the whole way. that's why when they just make little changes for the sake of making little changes, it's so disruptive. Because, like, we've had controllers that have worked along the same lines for decades now, with only fairly minimal changes between some of those generations. And that's because they work. Like, don't change things because you can. Change things because you have a reason to.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. All right, so that is going to do it for our discussion here on our more specific examples of games with good and bad controls. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have some other games you want to let us know about? We want to hear from you, so please let us know. There's many ways you can do that.
Yeah, you want to come fight us, huh? You want to go fight in the park? Do you love Two Worlds? You want to come fight?
That could be an interesting fight. But yeah, if you guys want to get that done, there's a couple ways to do that. You can do that through our group email. It's xpbillionaires@gmail.com. Or hit us up on our social media. You can find me on Twitter at billionairesxp, or you can find me on Instagram at Rafe Thegram. And Sky, where can everyone find you?
I'm at SkyKnightXP on Twitter and SkyKnight.xp on Instagram.
And Mel, where can everyone find you for that big fight?
Fight me at Feminist Gamer on Instagram or Feminist Gamer 3 on Twitter. I also have a D&D game that I'm in right now called D4 Adventures on Twitch. And you can check me out. I play Ezra, who is like a little goblin creature, except, a hot pirate captain, but definitely some goblin energy there. A lot of rock collecting is what I'm saying.
That's awesome. All right. And don't forget, xpbillionaires.ca is your one-stop shop for everything XP Billionaires. Written work, quickfire reviews, our weekly writing roundup thing. I'm really bad at the title. I'm sorry, Sky, but it's there.
WRWR, Weekly RPG Writing Roundup.
I'll get there. I swear I'll get there eventually. All right. And then if you do want to help us out and support us through coffee, you can do that there. There's links on the website. So once again, xpbillionaires.ca to check that out. All right. So that is it for us this week. And just remember, don't give up on games with bad controls. You can at least keep gaming for the challenge. Here's hoping. We'll see you next week. Take care, guys.
Don't actually fight me. I'm a wuss. Bye.
Bye-bye.